In the racing world, everyone talks about aerodynamics. But what does it mean for an F1 car to be aerodynamic? It's super important when it comes to allowing these cars to zoom past at crazy fast speeds while still having enough of a grip to stick to the ground. This is everything you need to know about aerodynamics in F1 vehicles. First off, why do F1 cars need to be aerodynamic anyway? Aerodynamics is the main reason why you see F1 cars zooming through entire tracks at such crazy speeds. As an F1 car speeds along, it's not just about raw power. Instead, what also matters is how effectively the car can slice through the air. On one hand, you've got downforce. This keeps the car glued to the track, especially in those hairpin turns. But constructors have to strike a balance. Too much downforce and you're dragging your heels, slowing down the speed machine. Luckily, F1 teams have mastered the art of crafting sleek wings, diffusers, and other gadgets that cheat the wind just right. Engineers have spent literal years learning all about this, so it's about time F1 fans catch up too. For starters, you've got the front wing. This is probably one of the most important parts of an F1 car, at least when it comes to aerodynamics. It's located right in the front of the vehicle and helps in generating tons of downforce. As we mentioned, this is what keeps the car glued to the ground instead of having it tumble at the slightest bump. It also helps to improve the car's performance, so it's a fairly versatile gadget, all things considered. Now, it's got to be said that even the front wing has several components, each of which has a unique function. You've got things like the main plane, the end plates, and the flaps. The main plane is the largest part of the front wing and is found in the middle of it. Then there are the end plates, which help to direct airflow around the tires. Last but not least, there are the flaps. These things are on top of the main plane and can be adjusted to tweak the amount of downforce the wing generates. Together, these components help to create an area of low pressure above the wing, while also making an area of high pressure below the wing. This results in extra grip, which is always welcome in the fast-paced world of F1. Plus, the cool part about the front wing is that it can easily change its shape. Teams can adjust it during a race to suit the track and improve the car's performance. Oh, and let's not forget about airflow. The end plates and flaps team up to guide the air around the tires, cutting through any turbulence that might slow the car down. But this is just one gadget out of many that helps to make an F1 car aerodynamic. Up next are the barge boards. These vertical wonders hang out near the front wheels of an F1 car. They're not just there for looks, though. Barge boards play a major role in how the car handles the airflow. So what's their job? Well, barge boards work to shape the airflow around the car and send it where it needs to go, like to the rear wing and diffuser. As air moves over the car, it creates a sort of suction effect behind it. Barge boards step in to create these cool whirlwinds of air called vortices. These vortices seal the gap between the car and the track, reducing the air that sneaks underneath. Less air underneath means more pressure on top, which means more grip for the car. In simpler terms, barge boards help the car stay glued to the track, especially when it's taking those tight turns. And barge boards don't just do their thing solo. They work closely with the front wing to guide the air just where it needs to go, right under the car's floor. These things have evolved over the years. They've gone from being basic to complex. But the same can honestly be said for every component of an F1 car. Like, just the amount of gadgets involved in boosting aerodynamics should give you an idea that these cars are nothing short of a work of science. Aside from barge boards and the front wing, you've also got side pods. These things also play a similar function in that they help to manage the airflow around the car, smoothing it out and reducing turbulence caused by those spinning front wheels. But side pods have another unique thing going for them. Inside those pods, you'll find the car's radiators, keeping things cool by whisking away all that engine and transmission heat. As with all the other components of an F1 car, engineers go all out when designing side pods. They use fancy computer simulations and wind tunnel tests to make sure that every detail about their design is ideal. This includes things like the size, location, and shape of the side pods. It shouldn't come as a surprise why constructors are so specific about these things. After all, since this component plays a big role in the aerodynamics of the car, it affects everything from speed to how the car handles. Then there's another gadget called the airbox. Some have described this as the engine's nose, and honestly, that description isn't too far off. It's a funnel-shaped opening that sits on top of the engine cover, right behind the driver's head. The airbox helps the engine in breathing easy, and really comes in handy when maxing out that speedometer. Inside, there's a neat filter which keeps all the dirt and debris in the air from reaching the engine. And considering this is F1 we're talking about, there's a lot of that going in the air. The airbox is designed to keep air flowing smoothly, which helps to reduce drag and boost the speed too. Finally, there's one other component that plays a role in boosting an F1 car's aerodynamics, and that's the rear wing. This is at the back of the car, like a giant flat wing you'd see on an airplane. Like several other of the components we've gone over, it helps to generate downforce, strengthening the car's grip on the ground. Now, this wing has two main parts, the big flat main plane and the smaller adjustable flap. When the car zooms straight, the flap sits pretty close to the main plane, giving just a bit of downforce for grip. But when it's time to move through those corners, the flap can be tilted up, cranking up the downforce and helping the car zip through the bends without slipping. Now, if all these components and their technicalities are making your head spin, we get it. After all, getting to this point wasn't something that happened overnight. F1 races have been going on for decades, and constructors have tried and tested tons of models during that time, learning about the do's and don'ts of this process along the way. So while we appreciate just how aerodynamic these cars are nowadays, it's also important to take a look at how aerodynamics in F1 vehicles has evolved over the years. Back in the 1950s, cars were mostly focused on slicing through the air like sleek bullets, aiming to minimize resistance. But the 1960s brought with it wings, and these little things might not look like much, but as we discussed earlier, they're incredibly important. Teams started strapping these things onto F1 cars to create downforce, giving them better grip and speed. But these early wings were a bit wild, sometimes causing more trouble than they were worth. So engineers got clever. They introduced ground effect aerodynamics, where the underside of the car was shaped just right to suck in air and create suction, boosting downforce without slowing the car down. But this didn't come without its fair share of risks. And in the early 80s, constructors decided to ditch it entirely. Nowadays, aerodynamics involves a ton of precise testing and calculations. Teams use advanced tech like the computational fluid dynamics, or CFD for short. It's all about chasing that perfect aerodynamic setup for fast speeds and a great grip on the track. But believe it or not, speed isn't the only thing that's the target nowadays. Lately, there's been a big push to minimize the turbulence caused by cars zipping around the track. This is because less turbulence means drivers can follow each other more closely and pull off more overtaking moves. This can help to make the races a lot more exciting to view for the spectators. But of course, as with any change made to these vehicles, it'll require extensive testing. Anyway, if you want to check out some more content on F1 racing and its history, make sure to click on this next video.